The worst year for a lot of us for our mental as well as physical health. So joining us this morning is best-selling author, coach, and fitness expert, Lisa Goldenthal.
Hello and welcome. I'm Lisa G, your host. You're at the top of your game, yet the game is changing faster than ever. Strategies that got you here aren't the ones that'll keep you here. The pressure is relentless, and the fear of obsolescence looms large. That's why I'm here. Welcome to the new podcast series, Disruptive: How to Be Gritty and Unlock Performance. This is your chance where I sit down with today's tops in business, mindset, wellness, and success to help you master disruption and thrive.
Thanks for coming, and I'll see you soon.
He spent 30 years in corporate America, from frontline sales to VP of sales over divisions and enterprise organizations. His biggest joy is seeing salespeople grow, succeed, and crush their goals, and wanting to help more people, not wanting to stand by and watch them fail. He needed to reach out to as many salespeople as possible, share what he learned and what he's done with as many salespeople as possible, because there's a lot of new challenges that organizations and sales trainers are not preparing for. And today I'm thrilled to welcome to the podcast, Chad Johnson. Welcome.
Well, thank you very much, Lisa. I'm glad to be here and joining you today.
Well, thank you. I love this topic about how sales have changed. Do you want to address that with our audience?
Yeah, what's really happened is that, buyers have control of the sale now. And the great thing about the internet is that people can go out and they can do their own research, and they prefer to do that. So they're not engaging with salespeople, especially in the B2B space, primarily anymore like they used to in the past. They're 75, 80% plus of their buyer's journey is complete before they ever talk to a salesperson. And that's where sales has changed. It's so important for salespeople to have an online presence and be there to meet their potential buyers when they go online. And that's the biggest change that's really occurred.
Wow. So the customer is driving sales now. They're 80% already decide by the time they reach out to you. So do you have any practical tips on how we can be more visible and create the compelling content?
Yeah, absolutely. What's really compelling about the information that's coming out is that, especially a source like LinkedIn, for example, LinkedIn, 75% of B2B buyers are going out and they're looking at LinkedIn to find not only the products and the companies that they want to review, but to find the people within those companies that they may want to speak to. So it's very important for salespeople, especially, to have a good online presence and a solid profile and be posting relevant content on LinkedIn for their buyers to discover. I read a really interesting statistic that 42% of the buyers that go to LinkedIn looking for salespeople for certain companies or products that they're interested in, they will actually decide whether or not they will have a conversation with a salesperson based on their profile on LinkedIn as to how good it is, the quality of it, and the quality of the content they're putting out. So that's pretty scary when you think about it. I mean, that a lot of sales trainers that are out there these days are still, I make a joke about it. They're still kind of training these sales techniques that were, maybe good when cars didn't have seatbelts and the web was just something for spiders. Today, it's all about social selling and having a good online presence and showing your relevance and your expertise online.
I love this topic because I think sometimes people can get intimidated and they can go look on LinkedIn and they'll be like, well, this person has that many followers, and not realize that it's a long game to put out the content every day and build a fiercely loyal audience, isn't it?
It is, but there is one thing that's really unique about LinkedIn. Whereas, yes, it is a social media platform, the most important thing about LinkedIn is that it's a professional platform, which means you don't have to have millions of followers or even hundreds of thousands of followers to be successful on LinkedIn. What you do need to do is create your own community and address your target audience with relevant content information. Talk about the problems they face. Talk about how you solve them, your unique value proposition and unique ways that you do solve their problems. Give them some background of success stories that you've had and show them testimonials from satisfied customers. Just be compelling and be present and be consistent. And that's really what it takes. I mean, I've seen people, or actually, I shouldn't say that. I know people that don't have very large followings, maybe just a couple of thousand people, and they run their own businesses and they're being very successful.
Wow. So it's not a follower count, it's quality network and quality content.
You
And,
bet.
well, since you're such a ninja at sales, do you have any tips on how to not do it, and respectively also too how to do sales? Do you have any sales tips?
Yeah, right now the best thing is that the traditional methods of cold calling and cold email as your first touch point or your first outreach, they aren't really effective anymore. I mean, you get about a 1 to 2% response on cold calls, about a 3 to 4% on emails, and those used to be so much higher. And there again, that goes back to the buyer taking control, right? So what's really important is when you're out there online, whether you're doing a newsletter, writing a blog, you're posting on LinkedIn, even doing videos, whether it's on LinkedIn, YouTube, whatever. The most important thing is to make sure that all of your information, all of your conversations, all of your content that you put out focuses on them. It's not about your product. It's not about what you're selling. Don't make it a pitch. It's not an elevator speech. It's not, hey, look at my product, come buy it. No, it's not that at all. Talk about their problems. Talk about their industry. Talk about the things that they face and are relevant to them in today's business world and how maybe legislation is affecting them or whatever the case may be that's relevant to them. And then how you can work within that ecosystem with them to solve problems that they have and make their life better. You don't really want to look like a salesperson. You want to look like kind of an expert tour guide. It's like, okay, if you want these types of products or services, let me guide you down this path. Let me provide you with the right information along the way for you to make an educated decision. And that's how it works today. That's where the success is really gained. And that's where top salespeople are crushing it right now, where others may be struggling.
So you want to be a problem solver and you want to guide people to the solution with your content. But what about when you're then like, okay, let's just say you're on a call or even in the direct messages, like I can say how to not be like spammy and pitching people that you don't even know, but can you say how we can do better?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because the DMs and things like that are where the game is won. It's about a soft approach. It's about thank you for engaging with my content. Did you have any further questions? Was there anything specific about the post that you engaged with or the content that I put out that you were most curious about? And then express your curiosity for wanting to understand what their situation is right now and maybe any problems they're facing, and just inviting them to have a casual conversation. Hey, we're not going to pitch anything to each other, but let's learn more about our situations and take the conversation from there. Let me see what else I can provide you. The other thing that's really great is it gives you the opportunity to be what I call a connector. And connectors are the biggest resource in sales right now that any business can have, and they look for them. And what I mean by that is you take someone like yourself or me who have a relatively large network. I know people in so many different industries, so many different disciplines, from IT to sales to HR to you name it, and I know you do too. Maybe I'm talking to somebody and they are a prospect of mine, and maybe in the next couple of months they will buy from me, but right now they have another issue, they need X, and maybe I know somebody who's an expert at that, and I connect and go, hey, I have a friend who does that. Would you like me to introduce you? Be that connector. Eventually what happens is you basically, your brand, you get known as the go-to person, not only for what you do, but just in general, because you have such a broad network and you can provide so many different avenues for people that you get everybody coming to you. And before you know it, they're also sending you referrals. They're sending you, all the business you can possibly handle. And you basically eliminate the need for any outbound selling at that point in time. And it takes about, to do it right, you can start your inbound machine and get it really going in about 90 days. And in about a year, 18 months on the outside, depending if you're in a really competitive industry, you may never have to prospect again. Just continue doing what you're doing and keeping up with your community and nurturing them and nurturing your relationships.
I love the focus on nurturing relationships and being that go-to connection, that you do lead with generosity and curiosity of what is the issue and how can I serve?
Mhm.
And then what other tips do you have about that?
As far as serving, the one thing that I like to do is, give freely of your information. You can share. I tell this to business people all the time. You can share your secrets. You can tell people exactly what they can do and how they can fix their problems. But guess what? They're still going to need you to do it. No matter how well you explain it, they're still going to need or they're still going to want to hire you to do it. So don't be afraid to not be stingy with your knowledge. That builds your trust, that builds your brand, that builds your voice, your thought leadership, and your willingness to be able to do that. I tell people all the time, really, if anybody wanted to know anything they could learn from me, just go read my content. It's all out there in pieces here and there and everywhere. And I share it all. And the great part about it is people will see it and they'll take one or two little things and they'll try it. And they'll be like, holy cow, that worked. I noticed a difference from just those couple little things. Imagine what else I could do if I actually worked with this person. They're going to come to you. It's believe me, they're going to come to you. So be free with your knowledge. Be happy to share it and allow people to experience it, because they'll do what they can and they will come to you for the rest. They will come to you.
I love that, because if all it took to be wealthy or lose weight was knowing the information, everyone would just be rich and thin because
That's right.
Google. But it's really the implementation that is more important, and actually having someone that's going to hold you to do the thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I when in talking to people, I tell them all the time, you can go and you can watch a video on YouTube for just about anything, right?
Right.
And even after seeing it, you're still not necessarily going to be able to do it. Or even after someone explains it to you, you're still not necessarily going to be able to do it. And it's not because you're not intelligent, and it's not because they didn't give you all the information. It's you just don't have the experience and you haven't done it. And that's where people are still going to come to you, but they're going to trust you because you've outlined that roadmap for them. You've openly shared your playbook and said, look, here's what I can do to help you. Here's how it works. Here's what it looks like. You're welcome to try it yourself. I've given you all the tools, but if you want me to help you do it really expeditiously, high quality, get it done right, here I am. And that's really what it needs to be. You need to be that, I call it being the expert tour guide, because you're not a tour guide of an area, you're a tour guide of intellectual property. Like for you and I in our businesses, what I do in helping sales companies and salespeople build limitless pipelines of qualified prospects. And, these are things that anybody can do, but unless you've done it over and over and over and time again, and the obstacles to watch out for, and the different nuances of doing it and tailoring it to different industries, those things you just can't get from knowing the game. It's kind of like chess. I know how all the pieces move. I would never beat Garry Kasparov.
Right.
It's the same thing. And so just giving people that ability to see your knowledge base and feel your expertise and maybe try a couple things. And that's really the differentiator right now, that visibility is so key.
So things have changed. Visibility is key. So you created, let's just say people are taking your advice, they're creating visibility, they're being that super connector. And then once you do have somebody on, let's say, a sales call, do you have any tips on how you can serve them better?
Actually, by the time you get to the sales call where you've earned the right and they've asked you to truly present everything that you have to them, you've pretty much eliminated all the questions at that point. Again, because they've seen so much and you've had those casual conversations and you've built that rapport with them, starting in the DMs and then moving to maybe a Zoom call or a phone call, or maybe you're close enough to actually go and have a cup of coffee together, literally have a face-to-face conversation. At that point, they've pretty much already decided that they're going to work with you. They feel comfortable, they trust you, they know you. Now it's really just a matter of working out the details. So what I tell professionals to do is, by the time you get to that call, be prepared to walk them through the details. What does it look like? Okay, you've seen the roadmap. Now give them the full picture of, here's how long it takes, here's what we do, here's the process, here's the cost. And by the way, you have very little hesitance on the cost at that point in time because they've already seen the value and they're bought into it. And it's basically just getting the operation started, getting the work started, and all of that, dotting your I's, crossing your T's, as people call it, whatever you want to call it. It makes it so much smoother for both the salesperson and the buyer, because everybody's comfortable, everybody's there, everybody's made a conscious decision, everybody's happy with their decision, and now we're just working out the details really by the time you get to that call. So just be prepared to, answer those detailed questions, be super focused and super relevant on how it best fits into their world, because change is never easy. So be mindful of the change, be empathetic of the fact that it's going to be a change and upfront about it. And really just dive in on how you're going to make it so, as easy as possible on them. That's really it.
And yeah, keep going. Sorry.
No, that's okay. It's okay. Go ahead. I was good.
Oh no, I just love this topic of sales because I really feel like that's why I want to talk to you today. I feel like everything is sales and marketing, and you're giving such wonderful advice. I guess my last question for you on this topic would really be about objections. Like, even if someone's 80% sold and then they get afraid, like the husband or the money, or will this work for me, things like that.
Yeah, no, that's the great thing about having that profile and having that content online, because what I like to do and what I teach, sales professionals to do is use your content to focus on those objections you're going to get, the ones that you always get, the ones that you've always heard. And what you do is you basically put that out for people to read, and you overcome those objections before you ever even get to the conversation, because you addressed them up front. You were out there with them and open and honest. Or maybe you shared that, hey, here's a customer that I worked with, and we got to this point and they were like, I'm a little nervous, what's going on here? And it's going to be the same thing that a lot of people that you work with are going to face. And you're going to have walked them through it before you ever got to that conversation. So you get to really preempt it. Really what it comes down to is where they get the nervousness. And you mentioned also, having other people involved. During the time you're having those conversations, there's very casual ways that I like to throw in things like, I'm sure you like to bounce these things off of other people. Are there other people in your organization that you trust, that you're going to share this with, that maybe you want to have involved in the conversation? Now, I've not taken any power from them, or I've not suggested in any way that they aren't in control of the situation, but I've also given them the leeway to bring in those other people, right? And one way that I like to address that is people be like, no, we can just, I go, the one thing that I've learned in my career is the fact that when you have those internal sessions, when I'm not around, the questions that come up, you're not really able to answer maybe. And maybe you forget to ask the question the way they really intended it, or maybe you just forget a question entirely and we go back and forth a couple of times. Just by having them in the conversation, you'll have me there. I can handle it right on the spot. I can, ease, clarify, whatever the case may be, and help you out. Because at the end of the day, I always want everybody that I work with to feel like, hey, I'm your advocate, which I am. But I generally want them to understand I'm your advocate. I'm there to help you. I want you to look good in your organization as well as be successful. So, give me that ability to make you a hero.
Wonderful. Any final tips, Chad Johnson, sales ninja, that you want to leave our audience with on how they can be unstoppable in this completely new environment that we're living in?
Yeah. The last thing I would say is put any unconscious biases or thoughts you have aside. about, well, this doesn't feel comfortable, or I don't think that makes sense. Because remember, at the end of the day, it doesn't have to make sense to you. It has to make sense to your buyer. So focus on them, focus
Yeah,
on their
focus on
needs,
that. Yeah,
make it make sense to them,
yeah.
and the rest works. That's really all there is to it.
Well, I know we connected on LinkedIn, so where can people find you?
LinkedIn is a great place. I'm a top voice on LinkedIn, and I'm very visible. So anybody, please, can connect with me, DM me on LinkedIn, or they can reach out to me through my book and appointment link that's on my profile as well. And last but not least, I do have my business website, which is my business email, info@makeprospectingsuckless.com, because quite frankly, sales prospecting does suck. It always has sucked. So I help you make it suck a lot less.
Ted Johnson, that's wonderful. That is the truth. Thanks for being a great guest on Whole CEO with Lisa G.
Thank you for having me, Lisa. I really appreciated it.